if you've been here before. I usually have some notes that I bring up when I go to do introductions. I'm waiving it this time. This one's from the heart. So I moved out here a year and a half ago. Left my family home in Michigan, go on the next adventure, come out to Las Vegas. I had no friends here, didn't really know anybody, but what I did have was a referral from the main IGDA that there was this young man in the area that was looking to restart a branch of the IGDA. We weren't sure that Las Vegas was really ready for that, that there would be any interest in our branch. Earlier this month, we passed 500 members. So we've kind of done all right with that. As happens in the stuff of life and the stuff of careers, people have come, people have gone, but one person has held our group together, Grover. And tonight, finally, Grover's going to be presenting. So give him a warm round of applause, please.
Thank you, guys. Can you guys all hear me okay? Good? All right, cool. Yeah, my presentation this month is showing indie games at conventions. I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We wanted to talk about this topic because we had a big convention that just passed Level Up Expo. And we've shown there every year for like the past 5 or 6 years since they were at the, what's the name of the place? Yeah, Cashman, yeah. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now it doesn't want to, there we go. So who am I? How did I come here to Vegas? I've been making games since 2004 for fun. Before I was a member and we started the chapter here in Las Vegas, I was a member of the IGDA Los Angeles and the IGDA Orange County. In 2012, I created an indie game studio called Wim Independent Studios, or Wimberly for short, with 2 of my closest friends, and since then we've released 3 games. We all have day jobs, and we pretty much do our studio stuff on late nights and weekends. So what conventions have I been to? I left out E3 here, but Playcrafting Expo, they're mainly based out of the East Coast, but they did a West Coast show once. Retro Gaming Expo, Level Up Expo, Game On Expo, we've been to GDC, and GameCon, and Indiecade. So that's a few of the pictures of my team demonstrating. Yeah, so I'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So start off with the good. We always talk about the good things first. So the good. When you demonstrate your game at a convention, you get a lot of random player feedback. A lot of feedback that you didn't think you would get. I wanted to show the first picture there of the two kids in the Pikachu costume, because we made a indie game called Antics that was a mobile touch game, and they're playing it but they're both playing the game, and we only intended it to be one player. So it's just a lot of like things you didn't really intend to be played with, I guess. It's also a great opportunity to make good first impressions. If people come and like your game, you know, they're going to be fans for years to come. And it's also a really good morale boost for you and your team. A lot of our team works remotely, and or they work very separated from one another. And you know, when you show your game at a convention, you kind of get this sense of validation that, hey, other people like what I'm doing, and then you're kind of inspired to, you know, do more. And like I mentioned, it's a great learning experience to see how other people play your game, because there's the thing about difficulty. When we play our own games over and over thousands and thousands of times, we kind of get numb to it, the difficulty level. For example, you know, for a lot of people play our RPG Celatria, and they think that, wow, this is a really difficult game, whereas me and John, we, you know, go through it in our sleep. So we know that, hey, we need to knock down the difficulty of our game. I'm going to do a plug for Level Up Expo. Just like this convention just came to an end. It's held annually here in Las Vegas. It was held February this year, and it's going to be held in April of next year. The price of an indie game booth is the price of a game developer badge. It's like 35 to 40 bucks, really inexpensive. This is Level Up Expo is the only convention that I know that is very, very friendly to indie game developers. It's a great way to just kind of get your game out there and get objective feedback from your fans. And Morgan, who's in the back there, she runs the indie game dev booth for Level Up Expo. So if you're interested in showing your games, please talk to her after the meeting. I put some prices here in some of the other shows. If you want to submit your game to IndieCade, it's at least $100 for them to consider your application. Generic anime conventions, you're looking at $300 to $500 for a booth. And then if you want to do PAX, you're shelling out about $2 to $3 grand. If Level Up Expo is a very low risk way to kind of get your game out there and get some feedback as soon as possible. Now I'll talk about the bad. So the bad, you want to know the type of convention that you're attending. Do some research. There was a convention that was held here in Las Vegas a couple of years ago, and I'm not going to say their name out live, but we paid almost $500 for a booth, and we had like 1,000 people show up, and they promised 10 times that. So ever since then, I've kind of looked at YouTube videos of people walking through conventions, going through and seeing how it is and what their experience was. And I use that to analyze, hey, is this convention, showing my game at this convention, worth it? Does it have the type of people that would be interested in my game? What do their crowds look like? And just be very wary of new conventions that just pop up and they email you and be like, hey, come to our convention, we're just starting out. And ask to kind of have them cut you a break for fees. And one thing I've noticed from demonstrating our games at multiple conventions is that conventions are not a good place to sell your original IP. Everything that Wimberly does so far has been original game content. We don't really license from other people. So we have to come up with our own, we come up with our own characters, our own brand names, and it's very hard to sell that to somebody who's coming to a convention that, is there for like a game or anime series that they already like. I linked our character Silo from Celatria here because he was one of the characters that was most popular from people who attended our conventions. And we noticed that the people who picked this character were always dressed up in Dragon Ball Z, like cosplays, because his hair kind of looks like a Super Saiyan. So you can always make characters that kind of look like popular characters if you want to go for that, but just kind of know what you're getting into when you're demonstrating original IP. Continuing on the bad. At a convention, you can't help your exact placement. Even when we demonstrated at Level Up Expo or Playcrafting, we were kind of thrown all over the place in terms of where our booth or where the booths for the indie game devs are. Sometimes we're behind the exhibitors, and by the time they get to us, they have no, the people have spent all their money, right, and they don't want to spend any more money. Sometimes we're like off to the side, sometimes we're in the middle. It's very inconsistent. And you can't help that, right? So what you could do is, give out postcards to people in line. Try to say, hey, look for us. We're in the indie game dev section. Just try to keep that in mind, and you have to kind of work around that. And another thing I noticed, most conventions don't really classify indie game developers. You have your exhibitors, like if you're selling games, you're selling merch, you're selling, all these big ticket items. Or you're an artist alley where you're selling prints, you're selling charms, you're selling keychains. And we're such a niche group of people that trying to say, hey, I'm an indie game developer, conventions will kind of look at you. So you're an exhibitor? You want to pay for an exhibitor booth? Well, no, I'm more of like an artist, but I need to pay for electricity, and then they'll just kind of keep you on red because you're very difficult to deal with. So just keep that in mind. Now I'll talk about the ugly. No matter how much you pay for an exhibitor or an artist alley booth with electricity or an indie game dev badge, demonstrating your game at a convention is going to end up being very, very expensive if you want to do reasonably well. No matter how much the booth costs, you're going to spend a lot of money. For us, we spent money on, prizes, keychains, a spinnable wheel, a TV, equipment for computers and whatnot, and repair costs because, people who come and sit and play your game, they're not exactly the most friendly people to your electronics. Um, yeah. And for raffles and giveaways, you need to know the laws of the state. For example, Nevada heavily um, suggests you don't use the word raffle because it implies that you're gambling to win something, right? You want to do a giveaway or a sweepstakes, and you want to stress that there's a free entry option to keep things fair. Um, if you don't follow the rules, you can always, try to hire a lawyer or something. But if you don't follow the rules, there'll be a lot of legal trouble and fines that you didn't know you might have to deal with. Um, Another thing about doing giveaways, we not this year, but last year we did a giveaway for we gave away a gaming mouse, we gave away a Switch, and we gave away a stereo gaming headset. I think we spent almost $1,000 on trying to give away people to get people to follow us on Discord, on Twitter, on Facebook. And one thing that we've noticed that everybody would do what you asked of them to enter in, and our follower count and our Discord count and our Twitch count kind of skyrocketed. But then after the giveaways happened, they all kind of left, right? So it was a very short-term, short-sighted kind of thing to get followers. It really, they weren't following us because they liked our products. They were following us because they liked the prizes. So just keep in mind if you're doing something like that to try to get followers for your projects, for just buying prizes and things to give away. Some people will stay after that, but not as much as you were expecting. And now I'll talk about some tips and suggestions for demonstrating at an indie game convention. This one was one that was actually given to me by Larry a couple months ago. For the first couple of years, we were showing the same game and the same content of that game over and over again. For Celatria, we made a lava puzzle, and we spent a lot of time making this lava puzzle really fun, really challenging. And for the first year, people loved it. They got in line to play this lava dungeon, and they were struggling over it. They were asking their friends to come on over and play the challenge. And then we noticed, we were like, okay, we'll bring this back again next year. The next year, they're like, oh, I played this last year, and they just kept on walking. And so I would suggest if you, most of us we develop games that take a couple of years to make. If you plan on showing the same game over the course of a couple of years, you want to have something completely fresh and completely new to show every single year. People remember who you are, and they remember what games you have. Another thing, be on time, set up a day before. There was one year where we didn't do that and kind of lost our booth. But yeah, Dustin remembers. And Morgan kicked us out. It was fun. Be on time. Follow the convention rules for getting set up. Pretty simple stuff on that one. Another one that I suggest is you want to have your demo ready a few months ahead of time. If you try to do your demo at the last minute, you may come to a point where you demonstrate it and there's compiling errors that you didn't know you had. You want to make sure your game runs on different hardware. It runs smoothly on different hardware. And then after you finish your demo, you use the 1 and 2 months before the show to get promotional material ready for the show. Try to go, get pictures of the convention center, make social media, make your Facebook page, Twitter page if you haven't. Get Discord following, get a mailing list set up, that kind of thing. So use the 1 or 2 months right before an expo, not to work on your game last minute, but to get things ready. Some more tips and suggestions. If you have postcards and material, print it in a way where you can use and reuse it. For the first year, we would say, come to the Wim Indie booth. We're at booth 127A, and we would print 1,000 of them. And come the next year, like, okay, we can't use these anymore. It's got the wrong booth number on it. So either do that or put it away where you could put the booth number on like a sticky note or something on top of it. But use, reuse, and recycle. Um, don't be afraid to say your game is like insert popular game here. A lot of people are kind of hesitant to say that their game is like something else because we all want to be original. But when somebody's coming by your booth for like 10 to 15 seconds, you want to be able to say, hey, come play Solitria. You like games like Final Fantasy? Oh, hey, do you like tower defense games? Come play Antics. You like twin stick shooters with a focus of Legend of Zelda aesthetics? Come play Spellbearers. You want to be able to get your 15-second pitch and talk about your game as concise and as fast as possible to people that are coming to play your games. Because if they're not interested, they'll just keep on walking to something that they are interested in. Let's see. Yeah, even more suggestions. Get a press list of people that are going to be at your convention. Most conventions are pretty good about having a list of press that are coming. The best thing that has happened for us for conventions is that we would get people that want to give interviews because we can help promote them. They help promote us. We get more of a digital presence online with interviews, and we can talk to them about hey, let's grant you an exclusive word. That's what Larry told me. Exclusive. That's always a good word. Make sure you have things ready for your game that you can tell the press. That way they'll write positively about your game. And if you throw the exclusive word around, they'll be more likely to kind of have you featured somewhere. And last but not least, wear good shoes. You'll be walking a lot. My feet still hurt from Level Up Expo, and that was a week and a half ago. So make sure you wear really good shoes. You'll be walking around your booth a lot. You'll be walking to and from a lot. And this one was from Dustin. Make sure to be willing to make adjustments to your game on the fly. I mentioned earlier that you don't really know how difficult your game is until other people play it. And there has been several occasions where me and John are like working late night or early in the morning after the convention and saying, hey, we need to make these changes to the game. These people were using this combination and they were killing the boss in like a couple of hits. Or these items, these weapons are overpowered. If it's too difficult or it's too easy day one, tweak some variables, tweak some objects. The next day, come back and be like, hey, we made some changes. Come and play our game again. And bring a flash drive, because don't depend on your mobile data at a convention. If you've been to like shows at like E3 or GDC, good luck having access to your mobile data when thousands of other people are stuck on the same cell tower network and kind of bogging that down. And have feedback forms handy. Google Forms, pen and paper, some way so you can get like a mailing list, get people that are interested in your game to give feedback. We've gotten, I think, like 40 or 50 pieces of feedback for each of our games at this last convention. Have something, because you want to know if a lot of people give good feedback on your game, you know what to keep. Even if it's not in your original design. But if you have a lot of things that are bad, or you see a negative trend, you want to make sure you address that ASAP. The last two tips: know the convention center haul-in and haul-out policies. We learned that on the second, if you have your convention on the second floor, like how Level Up Expo was this year, it has a size and weight requirements for cars going in the convention center. So hauling out, which would take 30 minutes on the first floor, took like almost 2 hours on the second floor. So talk to security. Just know like, hey, how am I gonna dismantle this thing at the end? And I'd save this last, and I put it in bigger text, but be friendly. If you're a solo developer and you're showing your game at a convention, you want to be friendly with not only the people who come and visit your booth, but your booth neighbors, right? If you need to leave for a second to use the restroom or get some food or something, you don't want to be a jerk to the people around you. They can watch your booth or something while you're gone. So I can't stress that enough. Be friendly. So just kind of a recap. These are the conventions I would look forward to immediately. Level Up Expo, as I mentioned earlier, and there's a link there. Indiecade is accepting submissions for games until May 15th for their show. They have a show on the West Coast in Los Angeles in every October, and then they have a show, I think, in Paris or the EU. And if you get accepted, you can choose either one. I think Los Angeles would probably be the closer one for us, right? So they do tend to accept more artsy games or games that have some kind of message, but it doesn't hurt. It's always better to try and apply and be rejected than never apply at all. Indie Mega Booth is another big one. The Indie Mega Booth has ties to bigger game shows like E3, PAX West, and PAX South. If you apply to Indie Mega Booth, they'll either give you what's called a Mega Booth, where you have your own thing for the whole day if they really like your game and your concept, or they have the Indie Mini Booth, where you just demonstrate your game for 2 or 3 hours on one of the days. But you would still have thousands of people coming by. So if you have a really good game, I highly suggest applying to Indie Mega Booth ASAP. And then there's Game On Expo. I went there last year. It's in Phoenix, Arizona, and they have that problem where they don't really know where to put indie game devs, but they're getting a little bit better about it. They have it on their website that they're looking for indie game devs, so you can always just say, hey, cut me a deal on an exhibitor booth or something like that, and that you'll be able to demonstrate there. And that's all I have. It's pretty short. So, any questions? I just asked that please talk in the microphone, so that way it'll be picked up on Twitch. Yeah, thank you. Any questions? No?
Testing? There it is.
Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm John. Grover's mentioned me a couple of times in the presentation. I just wanted to say a couple more things on some of his points. The be friendly topic. It is so, I don't know, some of you probably, work in retail or other public facing, or like call centers and stuff. It is so difficult to be consistently friendly with, the hundreds or thousands of people who walk by your booth or may not even look at you. But especially when it's been 3 days and you're dead tired and you haven't eaten since breakfast and you just want to go home. But you're there because you love your game, right? You're there because you want this product that you've made to succeed. And it just takes a lot of discipline. So if you're gonna bring other people with you, you want to also make sure that they also have that discipline to maintain a presence and to maintain their friendliness while you're there.
You brought up a really good point because, can you guys hear me? Yeah, you brought up a really good point because there will be times when we'll be like, hey, welcome to our booth, and they'll look at us and then they just keep walking, and you're like, oh, okay, bye. So it was, it's like what you said. It's like, it's really kind of hard to keep that up because it's inside you're like, okay, well, fine. But you got to kind of keep that optimistic attitude throughout the whole convention. And after 3 days, when you said, we're all dead tired and we're exhausted, it's like, okay, keep it up until 6 p.m. on Sunday or something like that. Yeah. So.
Two kind of points. First of all, there's another new game show showing venue that's available, DreamHack Anaheim.
Oh yeah.
That opened up for the first time this year. I understand that was really pretty good. And one pro tip for anybody that's going to be showing their games: business cards.
Yeah.
What I do with business cards is you've got your badge on, right? The badge that's perpetually on you during these shows that you feel like has been tattooed onto you. In the back of it, there's usually a place to put your business cards. The reason I do it that way is because if it's somebody that I don't want to give my business card to because I never ever want to hear from them again, oh, sorry, I'm out. If it turns out to be, reporter from PC Gamer, Polygon, blah, 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 got my business card handy.
Grover, great
Yes.
talk, buddy.
Thank you.
Great talk. So one thing I think we could kind of come back to talk about is the price of conventions, and also just to sort of like give the top of that, the top of the
On top of that, yeah.
to level up, because yeah, like you said, the price is fantastic. But one thing you didn't also mention is that that does include electricity. So they're giving you a 10x10 booth and electricity, which most conventions don't do. Most conventions you're going to be paying for electricity, which that alone can be anywhere from $250 to $300.
Yeah, it varies based on the convention center, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess one thing I'd like you to talk about is also the prices you listed were for the conventions themselves, but
That's
there's
true.
a whole additional slew of costs with the crew and all the other kind of things. So I thought you might want to talk on some of the other things.
So in different conventions, they charge not only for electricity, like what Dustin said, but they also charge for Wi-Fi. So if you have games that require you to connect to some kind of server, or they require player versus player, and you need to connect online to be able to battle other people or take a challenge, that's an additional cost, and you need to be able to kind of test that beforehand, or have some kind of, like, if they're going to be playing an online game, make sure you have like hard connections between the computers, like a LAN setup or something like that, so you can be able to play, because you never know how spotty things are going to be at the actual convention center. Also, on the addition of electricity, we found that sometimes the plugs would be really, really far away, even when you pay for electricity. And it's like, okay, our cords don't reach that far, so make sure you bring a extension cord, splitters, your own splitters, that kind of thing. Otherwise, you'll be finding that you have to push your table all the way back to the plugs and hope that it'll still reach. Really good question there. Yeah.
So actually, this comes from our Twitch stream. Aloof Puppet mentions, to piggyback off of that and the quick pitch advice, don't be afraid to use the same quick pitch over and over again with larger crowds. It may not get a response the first time, but it may get it the second or third time. If you're not getting any response after a while, then think about adjusting the buzzwords you use.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I'm seeing it over here too. Yeah, if you say the same thing over and over again, it's kind of loses meaning, and you got to find out why people aren't really interested. So if you're saying twin stick shooters and people have never heard that term, say, oh, it's a shooter game where you can go in all directions. Or, oh, you like games like Legend of Zelda? It's like this, it's got the castles and the dungeons and the scrolling mechanics. You don't, just saying twin stick shooters to people who aren't interested in twin stick shooters or don't know what that means, it's just going to kind of lose its weight, and they're just going to keep on going. That was a good one. Thank you, Aloof Puppet. Any other questions? Oh, yeah,
Test. What's the biggest benefit of participating in these conventions? Why do you do it? It's a lot of struggle and work. So what's the biggest benefit?
The biggest benefit I notice for me, because I don't typically get a lot of sales on our games at conventions, but we do get a lot of longtime fans. We notice the biggest benefit for me personally would be interviews, getting people who are interested in your game. They come back year after year and they're like, oh, what do you have to show me this year? And I'm like, oh, we remember you from last year. Developing that kind of relationship with your fan base is crucial, especially when it's really the hardest thing about game development is getting people to care. Nobody cares about your game as much as you do. So it's really, really hard to get people to get interested, and two, stay interested. And having people follow you or say they really liked your game and they want to take a postcard, or you see them they like or follow you on social media, I think that it's really inspiring to me, and that's kind of what keeps me going. It's not just, oh, hey, I'm just working with my team day after day with no discernible benefit, right? It's seeing that external validation, if you will, of people liking your products and what you have to show. Thank you.
Can I add one thing to that?
Yeah.
So because I tend to take the conventions at a totally different angle. I have the good fortune of actually having a table at San Diego Comic-Con, right? And I was there 9 years ago and had my first game out, and I was demoing it. and I realized afterwards that I spent a lot of money and got no bump from it. So I was basically, I was done, right? But the next year I went back, had my arm twist, I went back, I had a game in progress, right? So I just took a game that I was still developing, I put it out there, and that's when I had the eureka moment. So for me, ever since then, so for like the last 8.5 years, I've treated conventions as a test bed, right? It is, if you bring a game that you're still developing, right, and you want to get really honest feedback, especially, you know, like in the prototype phase, right, then it is a fantastic place for getting really great feedback really inexpensively. Because if you turn to like a QA facility or something like that, right, you're going to get a printout saying here's what the people thought. But here, you can actually watch over their shoulders, right, and find exactly what they are doing and not doing and how they respond too, right? I mean, I've had games where they picked up the controls, played it for like 30 seconds, put it down and walked away, right? And then you kind of realize that maybe we're in the wrong direction, right? But if they pick it up and they're just coming back constantly, then you kind of go, okay, we're on the right path. So for me personally, I mean, I love the idea of promoting my games that I already have out, but for me, I've been using it exclusively to try and show games that are in progress and hopefully see what needs to be improved and what's working. So from my angle, that's what I do.
Yeah, piggybacking off of what you said, I do QA in my day job, and there's a lot of times where, yeah, we're testing the product for functionality, and we're testing the product to make sure that it works. But it's like, is this intuitive? Does this look great? You know, it's like, well, you know, that's not really our job to do that section of it. That's the, you know, the designer's job. And it's like what you said, we just send a report out and that's it, right? And then if you try to send your game to family or friends, and family and friends, you know, they have the best intentions, but sometimes it's like, yeah, you did good for you. It's kind of nice to have, and I want to say I'm really grateful for my team, especially because they are not afraid to tell me when my stuff sucks. And that's really, yeah, it's really important to have a team that's really honest with you and tell you, hey, this isn't working. But on the other side of that, you know, if you and your team have a consensus, but you go out and you show it to players and they're really not feeling it, like they're not feeling a certain game of mechanic that you thought that you were really passionate about, it's like, yeah, maybe if a lot of people are not saying this isn't going to work, that, you know, showing at a convention, you know, it's like, okay, take it out, like this isn't going to work. It worked better on paper.
We have another question coming in from the Twitch stream, courtesy of V66. Thanks, V6, buddy. What's a good expected playtime average for a single player to play for the first time? I think it's a great question since you have a collection of games and you probably
Sure.
have a different answer for each game.
So this was the first. This Level Up Expo was the first time where we had. Previously, we would have two games. We would have a mobile game where it's for quick play sessions, and then we have Celatria. It's a role playing game. And for single player role playing games, I don't know if you guys played the Final Fantasy VII remake that just came out, the demo on PS4. You know, it's like, how long do you need to figure out if you're going to like the game or not, right? For a role-playing game, it's significantly longer than a session-based game. But if you're playing a twin-stick shooter where you're just going around and shooting enemies that are coming into the room, you're going to find out pretty early on if you're going to like the game mechanics, because you can see how the game feels, you can see how the game, how the power-ups and the things that you do. You'll see pretty early on if you're going to like it or not. So to answer your question, V6, it really depends on the game genre. If the game genre is something where you can go in and get an idea of how long it's going to take for you to like or dislike the game, it's probably going to be a lot shorter, right? Tetris, pretty short time. Some kind of Tetris or Match 3 game is going to be really short, as opposed to an RPG, which you need to play for at least maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes to kind of get an idea. And going from somebody who's shown an RPG year after year, it's a big time investment for somebody to kind of sit down and play it, especially if they're there with their friends. And they're the friends egging them, hey, we need to go to this panel, or we need to go see this other thing, and they're not going to be willing to kind of see how your game really is. I think.
Let me expand on the RPG thing for a bit. So for our Celatria demo, our RPG that we've been showing year after year, we've had a lot of different challenges that we've shown off. We've had boss fights, we've had dungeon crawls, we've had mini games, we've had
Platforming elements.
dungeon puzzles.
Yeah.
Like, there have been a lot of different parts of the game that we've shown off. And over the years, we've realized, like, when people come and sit at our booth to play this game, some people sit there for a long time. And the problem with that is that that's one person taking up your booth for an hour,
Yeah.
right? You're not going to get a lot of throughput if your demo takes forever. So what we've been trying to do over the years is, come up with shorter and shorter things that are still really good nuggets of gameplay.
Yeah. At first, we had that lava puzzle, but people would be stuck on that lava puzzle, like what John said, for like 30 minutes to an hour. And at some point, we have to be like, all right, this is your last try, and you got to get off. And then and recently we've been doing like really challenging battle challenges that where you're going to find out if you like the game in 10 minutes or not, because it really shows a good slice of our battle system.
So, another.
Yeah, Yoshi, maybe
Sorry,
Yoshi
okay.
first.
Yeah.
Hi. I have a comment and also a question.
Sure.
I guess I'll start with the question. Are there any technicalities? You mentioned about like giving stuff for free.
Yes.
There are some like legal logistics that you have to understand,
Mhm.
navigate through. But what about also selling things? Are there any things like tax related or legal things that we have to be aware of when selling products or?
Right. Most conventions, when you sell at a convention, you need a seller's permit for that city or jurisdiction. It's not that expensive. It's not that difficult to get. And I think for like Level Up Expo, we just had to fill out a tax form. And then they send it to everybody on like Sunday, and then we just fill out what our sales was. If you plan on selling things, make sure you accept cash and card. Have I think it's a Stripe machine, where you like attach it to your phone and you slide through. Square Up, yeah. A Square Up machine, so you can accept card payments, because a lot of people have cards. But yeah, usually the convention staff will give you like a tax form to fill out, and then just have a seller's permit for that jurisdiction, just to make sure that you're okay.
Thank you. The comment I wanted to make was just to kind of roll on the point about Grover's point about expos, and also kind of to address, I guess, your question about what's the importance. For me, my first expo that I've ever attended as an exhibitor, showcasing a game, was PAX South.
Yeah.
And conventions, at least this expo, has a very special place in my heart, because it was my very first expo, very showcasing my product for the first time. It was like the kind of a moment of vulnerability as a developer.
Right.
And back then, I was very, how long ago was that? I was like 4 years ago. I was very new to the indie game space. I was very new to the industry. I had no idea if I was even in the right track. And for me, one of the biggest benefits I got from this expo was not necessarily the feedback, but for me, the sense of community and
Yeah.
the networking capabilities and the opportunities at the expo. Because I was until the process of actually showcasing my game, I was in like my little man cave, just working on the game, grinding, and always this doubt in my head saying, are people gonna like it? Like, I don't even, at this point, I'm so close to finishing, but I don't even want to show it because I was like this fear.
Right.
But yeah, like being able to hear all these developers' stories, like hear their not necessarily the stories of struggle, but also like them being vulnerable with their products too, I think is very kind of inspiring and empowering to kind of share. And I think every developer has their own kind of story that they can share, and to be able to be a part of that and understand that you can, how do I say, contribute to the understanding, like, because everybody has their own special, different genres require different understanding and different methods to build it. So, no, I just wanted to share a little bit about why expos are very important or special to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of building off what you said. Yeah, you really get that whole like and I'm sure people who are fellow indie game devs in the audience do feel about this, where you get really this feeling like I'm just developing in a bubble, and you don't really know what kind of feedback you're going to get. And like you said, like when you show that and you see that sense of community and people really like what you have to share, it's very empowering. It's very inspiring to feel like, hey, you know, people like what I do, and that really means a lot.
Couple more questions here on Twitch stream. So Aloof Puppet asks, what are some small but vitally important things that you found you need when setting up and breaking down a booth, i.e. screwdrivers?
I learned this year that we need carts, like wagons and carts. We were, you know, we just carried. I have a big team, so we just like carry all the stuff in by hand, and we learned this year when we were waiting 2 hours to get in there, and like Dustin came by with his cart. It's like, hey, you having trouble? I'm like, yeah, we kind of are. Carts and wagons are really, really good. Let's see, finally important things.
Rip ties.
What was that?
Rip ties.
Oh yeah, rip ties.
Ties.
Yeah.
Packing tape. Packing tape to tape stuff down.
Yeah, beach carts from Target are literally the best investment. Yes. And what else? Carts. We're gonna invest more in like monitors. You know, additional monitors to show. We've noticed when we would have our laptop on our side of the booth, attached with a HDMI cable to a monitor on their side, we can see on our side exactly how they're playing without feeling like we're over their shoulder all the time. And that was really good because it was easy for us to kind of reset things because we would know that they were done. And two, we could also, like, if nobody was at our booth, we can play the game from our side of the booth, and people can see other people playing the game as they're walking right by until they come and sit down. Like, oh, you want to give the game a try? We're going to invest more in laptops and external monitors. Let's see. Did that answer your question, Aloof Puppet?
Yeah, I think.
Hopefully.
Yeah. All right. So PS Vela 76 asks, to expand on that, going to the previous one, in your experience, what's the best way to encourage a booth visitor to move along after they've set up camp at your booth? Is there an appropriate amount of time?
First of all, I want to say hi, Paul. Second of all, to answer Paul's question, after X amount of time, depending on the game, right? If they're looking like they're losing the thing a lot, and they're you know, at some point you'd be like, okay, this is the last try, and after that, you'd be like, all right, somebody else is in line. But if nobody else is in line and they don't want to play the things and like they're really enjoying it, why kick them off, right? So you really have to play it by ear, by how many people are in line trying to play your game, and how much the person is enjoying it, and you have to really find that balance between the two.
My technique for moving people along is to say, were you waiting to play? While he's playing. Were you waiting?
Are you saying make him feel guilty in a very passive-aggressive motion? Is that what you're saying here?
Yeah, that's so hilarious.
Couple other tips. We've talked about inducing consumers to come and getting that consumer feedback, but you also have the opportunity to get press feedback, right? Influencers, press. If you run into anybody at any particular show that's in the media, make sure that you get their email address. If you come back to the show the next year, send out an email in advance saying, hey, are you going to be there again? I'd like to show you the progress we made. Hey, you know, we incorporate some of the feedback that you gave. That's always a winner. The press always loves that. Love to show you how that's coming along.
So I don't see anybody here that I recognize from this group, but Las Vegas has a very, very active streamer community. So Twitch streamers, YouTube gaming, Mixer. I'm also part of that scene. And at Level Up this year, we saw a lot of people who I knew from this streamer group. One of the media folks that interviewed Grover at our booth was actually somebody that I had met at a meetup. I was like, oh, hey, I know you. Like, hey, come check out our booth. You know, indie devs and streamers have this camaraderie. Like, we have a lot of things in common. You know, obviously, I'm part of both communities, so I kind of get where each side is coming from. But you know, streamers need content, right?
Yeah.
Indie devs want marketing. Like, absolutely talk to streamers that you know have seen or that you know play your kind of game and be like, hey, you know, I'll give you a free copy of my game if you feature it on your stream, you know, 1 or 2 times. Like, the amount of organic, what's the exposure, right? The amount of organic exposure that you can get from somebody who is actually playing your game and being entertaining with it is immeasurable. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with a group called Achievement Hunter, but they are a group of people who literally their whole job is to play games and make fun videos of them playing games. And I've bought a lot of games simply by virtue of, oh, hey, they had a lot of fun playing this game. I should get that and play that with my friends.
Yeah, kind of going off of what John said. Larry mentioned it earlier too, the DreamHack conference that was in Anaheim this year. It's mainly an esports conference that a lot of streamers and stuff went to that event. And sure enough, they had a very sizable indie game dev presence this year because their goals are so aligned, right? Indie game devs want streamers and esports players to play their games, especially if it's competitive player versus player type content, right? So yeah, definitely reach out. If you see people walking around with like Twitch icons or Twitch shirts, be like, hey, you know, we'll give you a free copy of our game to stream or something like that, just to get that marketing and to get people interested in your game. That's the best thing you can do. One of the best things. Any other questions? Oh. We want to make sure it's picked up by our viewers on Twitch.
You were talking about raffles earlier, and
Yes.
it seems to me it would make more sense and keep longer duration if instead you gave a reasonable discount on your product for doing it. What do you think about that idea?
So that's something
Can
we've
I
been
answer this one?
Let me give a try first. So we've had a bit of a struggle on determining what we're gonna, 1, give away, and 2, put on discount. Last year we did, oh, you know, you can spin the wheel for every time you like us or follow us on Facebook or Twitter or Discord. And we had like, you can win a free keychain, a free button, all this stuff. And we were giving away so much merch that when we had our stuff for sale, it didn't really mean anything to anybody because, you know, to them it's like, oh, I won this for free by just following them on social media. And in the future, what we're going to try to do is kind of have a special giveaway for, we're going to kind of separate our merchandise. I keep hitting that. We're going to separate our merchandise for what we're going to sell and have our merchandise for like what we're going to give away and kind of separate the two. It's like, this is what we're going to give away for free. This is what we're going to sell. Otherwise, it like every time somebody wins something for free, it kind of cheapens everything else. John, did I put
Yeah. So, like Grover said, we have a wheel that we had a couple of different ways that people could win prizes at this year's Level Up, and a lot of people just like spinning a wheel, right? Like
colors.
Yeah, moving colors, and oh, hey, this is exciting. We had, you know, keychains, buttons, etc. on this prize wheel, but we also had discounts as a prize.
Yeah, like it was like 20% off or
Yeah,
something.
it was some pretty significant discount. But whenever somebody got that option as their prize, you could see how quickly they were disappointed. A discount is nothing
I
compared
coulda won
to
this
a
for free.
physical piece of merchandise.
Yeah. Really good point.
We live in the age of the Steam sale, right? So if your game is commercially, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If your game is commercially available, they're just going to assume that they can wait for a year and then it'll be 90% off at the Steam Summer Sale. So discounts don't really move things along. One of the advantages about shows is that you've got a physical contact, and that's your chance to sell physical merchandise without paying shipping costs. I mean, so there's that side of things. But again, the other advantage about physical merchandise is there's a sense of you have to get it now or you're not going to be able to get it. There's a call to action associated with that stuff. So
I mean, that's one of the reasons why Limited Run does so well, right? They have, oh, if you don't order this by 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time by this, you're never going to get it again. You know, so they're doing so well because, you know, they have all this merchandise that is really cool, and they know that they're never going to reprint it again. Oh, another. Okay.
So, I guess we got last question here from V6 coming from Twitch again. What would you find as the most accepted type of quote merch to give out, or a combination of merch?
Keychains. There's been several people that would come by where we would give away our Melanie and number 16 character keychains, and they're like they're like assassin characters or characters that are holding up a sword. They look really cool. And and maybe a couple hours later, their parents would come back and like, my daughter really loved this character. I don't know who she is, but she's awesome. And we're like, yeah, okay, yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, there was one specific incidence of that, and I was telling Grover about it, and he was like, yeah, this is just that makes it worth going to the expo in the first place.
Yeah. It's that validation, right? It's that positive feedback you're getting from the people, like, hey, these are really cool. Oh, I think we got one more question in the back. Oh, yeah.
Okay. It also like adding on to that, because I also draw quite a bit of merch for like games or doing artist alleys. It also does depend on your individual game. For example, if you have like a visual novel and it's very much like steeped with like, you know, it's a visual novel, you're going to be seeing a lot of art. Potentially having an art book of your game showing off some of the concept work, sprite work, like, you know, some of the cinematic graphics that would be in the game, keychains especially, people love those things. If you've got the money for it, plushies, people really, really love plushies. Prints, though, that can be printed pretty cheaply depending on where you go. People love stickers. I was handing out stickers left and right when I was showing at Level Up Expo. Trying to think of like other really, really big things. T-shirts, yes, especially if you can get like such an eye-catching design for a T-shirt. Also blending into like, oh, you know, they're more so interested in the aesthetic that you have for your game. T-shirts, hats, those sort of things especially do go over very well. You know, it doesn't need to be necessarily completely like enthused with the aesthetics of your game. It could be just the aesthetic of.
Yeah, one thing we noticed we tried this year is since we have a RPG, a turn-based old school Final Fantasy game, we not only created merchandise of like the characters themselves with the original characters, but we had generic things like, oh hey, it's a mage with a picture of a staff. Oh, it's a knight with a picture of a sword and shield done in our art style. So people who maybe play like MMOs or other games like, oh, okay, that looks pretty cool. I'll take one of those buttons. You know, they can be kind of tangentially related to your game, and they'll still do pretty well, as opposed to just completely original content. Are we out of question? Oh, 36, yeah.
I think that should probably do it. We want to have some time for networking.
Yeah.
Grover, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thank you. And if you have any other questions for me, oh, whoops. Oh, I shut it off by accident. Yeah, you can follow me at Grover Wim or at Wimberly. Wimberly's the studio account. Grover Wim is my personal. So if you have any questions, just feel free to bug me there. So thank you.